everybody. Welcome to Guided Listening. Today, I'm Jeff Antoniuk here from JazzWire. And I tell you what, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do that. I'm also on Facebook all the time, being as clever as possible, and I'm reposting that stuff on Instagram and everything. So you can definitely find me there. So keep a lookout for these videos and everything else. So today, Guided Listening, we're going to listen to somebody named Rich Perry. Do you know about Rich Perry? Richard Perry? Tenor sax player. If not, we're going to be such good friends in about 8 minutes from now. Rich Perry is honestly one of my favorite musicians, one of my favorite improvisers in the history of jazz. He's been living in New York City for, 30 some years. I think he's from Cleveland. I've met him once or twice. I love his playing. So we're going to be listening to a tune called Long Ago and Far Away. Great old standard. It's one that we're working on inside JazzWire. I'm actually going down to the University of North Texas and going to be playing this in a concert, a gig that I have there at the end of February. So yeah, it's a tune I've been thinking about. I was reminded of this great recording. Now, Rich Perry has done, I want to say 30 or so albums as a leader, probably another 30 with other folks. He plays in the Maria Schneider Big Band. He played in the Thad Jones, Mel Lewis Big Band. He plays in the Vanguard Band. There's a lot of places to hear Rich, and he should be like, let's call it Beyonce level famous. I don't know if he dances, maybe that's the problem, but yeah, Rich Perry is just fantastic. So I'm excited for you to hear him. If you don't know this recording, great. If you don't even know about Rich, here we go. I'm going to be pointing out a couple things here. First of all is his ability to create interest over a long period of time. His solo here is 7 choruses long, 230 some measures long, I think. And how he builds and builds. He starts slow. He edits at the beginning of his solo, I want to say. He starts very slow, and then how it builds and how it builds. One of the things I love that he does is using accented dissonances. He'll do this cool thing of being very inside, very pretty, and then he'll land and stop on a note that kind of stings. It's very hip. I've heard him do this plenty. We hear him do it in this recording, and it's a very cool aesthetic and something that I'm trying to get into my own playing. There's also a melodicism we hear from Rich here, the piano player Frank Kimbrough, the bass player Jay Anderson. I want to say it's Peter Washington on drums. And from the 3 melodic players, bass, piano, saxophone, how they're treating the chord changes is interesting. So if you're a player, the first 8 measures of this tune is 1, 6, 2, 5, 3, 6. It's kind of rhythm changes. So a lot of chord changes flying by. Diatonic, but a lot of chords going by. And so many of us would jump into those chords and just start skiing moguls through them, right? We would be trying to nail all those great resolutions. Fantastic. Good way to play. The approach that these guys are taking is playing over that beautiful diatonic setting. So it's pretty cool how I don't hear them, bobbing and weaving through all the intricacies of like rhythm changes in a sense, playing melodically. So I'm going to point out some of those moments. And now when we hear Rich doing that, what is the piano and bass and drums doing behind him to facilitate that? Well, Rich is a great player, but Rich knows that you have to have a great team behind you too, right? So there's some really fantastic ensemble playing behind the soloists. A lot going on here. So let's jump into it. Long Ago and Far Away, we're going to hear Jay Anderson on the bass solo first. We're going to hear Frank Kimbrough on piano second, and then we're going to hear Rich Perry. Here we go. So I hear Rich playing really quietly, like it's like he's whispering. The sound of the tenor sax whispering. It's beautiful. And brushes on the drums. And the bass is playing what kind of feel? A 2 feel. In other words, he's playing half notes on beats 1 and 3. 1, 3, 1, 3. Really compelling 2 feel. I love the melody. Right, first solo. So it's interesting to have a bass solo first. It keeps the volume and the vibe really contained. Listen to what he's playing. He starts off the solo playing a bunch of descending thirds, it sounds like. really nice enclosure kind of sound there. It's really quite diatonic, which is cool. We're not hearing a lot of out stuff for sure. Hear that pedal tone in his playing? It's a classical music, Bach and before kind of trick, moving lines over a pedal tone. So he created the pedal and the moving line. He created counterpoint in his solo. There it is again. We're gonna hear Rich do this as well. I think we're gonna hear Frank on piano do it as well. It's a great technique. And the brushes, right? Drums are still on brushes. What a great solo. What a great melody that opening line that Frank Kimbrough plays. And just notice, the bass, still in 2. We've yet to walk and swing. And we're what, 5 choruses into the tune? And this is the part I'm talking about. This is kind of the rhythm changes. There's a lot of chords here. But it doesn't sound like he's embroiled in the chords. He's playing these beautiful melodies over top. That's interesting. A lot of advanced players wouldn't allow themselves to do that. They feel like they have to be in the weeds with the changes. This is just so beautiful. And what's happened with the drums? Sticks, but it's still not walking and swinging. Broken bass. It's not quite a 2 feel, but it's not walking. So there's some energy behind it, right? And so there's so much interest in the bass and drums. I would argue there's more going on in the bass and drums than the piano solo at times. And so that's one of the things that allows Frank Kimbrough to play quote unquote simply or diatonically is the energy from underneath. Hear that polyrhythm underneath? Or grouping, it's not really a polyrhythm. 16 measures, the bass and drums have kept that going. And now they release. Still a 2 feel. It's incredible. We're halfway through the track. And Rich playing all these cool bobbing and weaving rhythms. Finally, we're swinging. Finally, what, I don't know, 6, 7 choruses in before we swing. This is how these guys are able to make a track last a long time, but not get boring. A lot of bands would have been swinging from the first measure. Here we're 300 measures in. Wow. And listen to how Rich is taking his time. All those spaces. But then when he's playing those 8 notes, how it floats above. God, his time feel is incredible, incredible. But he's still kind of whispering to us. You can hear him leaning into some notes, though. Whispering. Getting into more rolling 8th notes. Hear him sitting on those accented tensions a little bit now. He's not wowing us with technique, but he's wowing us with these flavors, these colors that he's making us listen to. Great motive there. Great rhythmic thing. So now he's speaking with a fuller voice, isn't he? Yeah, so now he's speaking with fill the room voice. And those awesome notes that he'll sit on that most other players wouldn't. Woo! And then hear how the piano supports that stuff, right? He loves playing those offbeats. Blah, boop, bop, boop, bop, ba-doo, ba-da. Keeping that rolling. Ooh, listen to that pedal underneath. How the bass is kind of keeping it. Pulling back the slingshot. And a release when he goes back to walking. And now this is swinging. Remember where we came from? Wow, this is totally changed. And the solo keeps going. This is his 6th or 7th chorus, but it makes sense that he's playing that long, right? He used to be whispering. Now he's kind of in our face a little bit, right? He used to have a lot more space. Still space here, but the density is filled up. More of those tension notes. There's those cool offbeats Rich likes to play. Quoting the melody, and what happens here? And all that energy that he built, that slow burn that went on forever, totally dissipated. He's back to whispering, brushes on the drums, and sort of that broken bass. Listen to the bass, how slow he's moving. So he's really just kind of downshifting, downshifting. So we're 8 from the end. Here's the end of the tune. So what happens here? Last 8. They did a tag of the last 8. So cool, couple little extra chords there at the end, ending on an unexpected chord. Wow, I love that recording. So one of the fascinating things to me, you know, if you're a player and you try to play a longer solo, if you're used to taking 2 choruses, what happens when you take 3 choruses? What happens is usually not good, because you play your 2 choruses that you're used to, and then what happens for the next chorus? You wish you hadn't taken it. You have nothing more to say. You've said what you have to say. You're used to playing that, right? And so most of us don't have this reserve we never tap into, right? So you end up playing the same stuff you've already played, or the energy starts pooping out because, like, physically, mechanically, you're not used to playing. It's just kind of not great. So how, yeah, it's like you're used to writing, you know, little paragraphs to people. Now somebody asks you to write a short story. It's not just adding up a bunch of paragraphs to make a short story. We need to, all right, there's a lot to handle. The tension, the release, the development, right? Rich is a freaking master at that stuff, of how, just think about his tone. Think about all the aspects of music, his tone. He started out whispering to us for a long time, and then he got more forceful. He got more forceful, right? Think about his volume. He was softer. He got louder. So there was a progression in his playing, right? He started out with a lot of space. He ended up using, you know, less space. He was more excited, but he still uses space better than anyone I know. Those accented, surprising tensions that he ends on, and I talked over probably about 100 of them in there. Listen to it again, and that's a cool thing that I just love about his playing, and it makes me smile that he stops in these surprising places to me. And I've read a lot of cool quotes recently about music. I'm trying to think of, gosh, who I heard say it most recently, but basically surprise is an element of music and art. And if I'm not surprised, what's the opposite of surprised? Bored, don't care, right? So even as Rich is playing, he's whispering, he's not blowing me away with ridiculous technique, et cetera, but I keep being surprised and I'm smiling, right? So it's fun. So he's a great player. If you're not hip to him, there's so many recordings out there, right? He was on Steeplechase probably for the last, or is on Steeplechase for the last 30 some years, makes an album or 2 a year. That's how we, you know, got that many albums out there. Lots of them I love. He records standards a lot, and you know, also some cool off the beaten path stuff. But if you want to know a great recording of almost any standard you want to know, he's probably recorded 300 of these great standards, and we get to hear his great vision. Of course, he has these fantastic groups. So the other thing I liked about this is the lesson that I was learning is I look at the chord changes and the form of this tune, and I've got these preconceived notions about, oh, it modulates the 4, I can do such and such. You know, these things that I'm used to doing over those chords, and how all three of those soloists, Jay Anderson, Frank Kimbrough, Rich Perry, how they treated those chords differently. They were sort of floating above the chords a little more, which takes a lot of knowledge from each of those guys. And then it takes a great rhythm section to facilitate that and not make it sound boring or facile or whatever. As you can tell, I love these guys and I love this recording. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you have some ideas of what to do with your own playing or your own listening. So many of you out there just love listening to jazz. So I really hope that by letting you know some of the rules or some of what's going on behind the scenes, you have a deeper understanding next time you listen to any album, right? For those of you that are players, there's all sorts of ideas here for you to take the next 3 years and try to enact, right? Good. So that's what I want to get down there. And I'm here because of Jazzwire, right? So I would love for you to come in to Jazzwire and let's work on some of these ideas. We're literally working on this song right now. Come in and check out the lesson, by the way. You can take the 30-day free trial of Jazzwire and check out. We're on, I think, our second week of 3 weeks focusing on this tune. I'm going to be talking more deeply about Rich Perry and his playing and some of the licks that we heard here. Come in, check out what Jazzwire is all about, and I hope to be working with you there. Thank you so much for paying attention. Please subscribe here on YouTube. Please check me out on Facebook and Instagram.